Happy Friday, everyone. What's going on? It's a Friday podcast because we have a weird weekend. We got a pay-per-view coming up. I'm really busy, and I need to find some time to come up and talk to you guys about a whole bunch of stuff. So this is going to be a really news-heavy podcast. Virtually no results at all. We're going to talk about a couple of things on Dynamite, a couple of things on Raw, but we're not going to be running through any results. This is a really news-heavy show. All sorts of things to talk about today, including the man you see on your screen right now. Not me, the other one, Andrade. Over there, sorry, Andrade. A lot of messiness with his situation. We're going to be opening up with that today. We're also going to be talking about the latest on Seth Rollins' injury. We're going to be talking about all sorts of news, like the Ridge Holland situation, this new WWE AI story. Vince McMahon was in court this week. We're also going to talk about Def Rebel possibly being on the way out, injuries to Jacob Fatu and Kota Ibushi, an update on Chris Jericho, some news on Darby Allin. We'll talk a little bit about this past Sunday's Bound for Glory as well. And the big one, we're going to be predicting tomorrow's WrestleDream. Now, unfortunately, I am not going to be here for WrestleDream. I have a big major event at my work that I have to be there for. I am absolutely required for something like this. We're taking care of somebody pretty famous, so I got to be there. So unfortunately, I'm going to be missing the pay-per-view tomorrow, which sucks, but I wanted to at least come up here and offer you guys predictions, and right now the working plan is for me to give you thoughts in my review on WrestleDream probably on Monday night after Raw. We'll be up here on Monday for a Raw review, and I'll give you all of my thoughts on WrestleDream, but we will be here to predict it today and run through all of those matches. So that's kind of what's on tap, basically just a lot of news. We're just going to get caught up on news today and shoot the shit, hang out for a little bit on Friday here ahead of SmackDown, and we should be wrapping up this podcast about 30 minutes before SmackDown goes live tonight. So, yeah, that's kind of what's on tap for this afternoon. Thanks to everyone who is here. I know this is normally a Saturday podcast, but we're here on Friday because WrestleDream is tomorrow. So if we're going to be talking about all this news, we're going to have to do it today. So that is the plan. I'll be saying hello to everybody here in the chat in just a second. Do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button for me. Make sure you subscribe if you have not yet already. Super chats are open. I'll be hitting every one of those as we go through. Memberships and all that jazz are open as well. And all that info is located down in the description below, along with merch options and all that stuff. So you guys know the drill there. Actually, let me just say hello to a few people here in the chat. Mike Rouse, Tatanani, Nick Musser is here, MJ Parker, Jay Lambo, Ryan Adams, David Brown, William Cullen, Zane G is here as well. We got Jay Boba chiming in with $5. Thank you for that. Seth needs to take over a year off and really rehab all of his injuries. Guy's going to end up retiring before Punk and Orton at this point. Well, at this point, I don't even know if taking a year off is really going to help. You know, once you have, multiple knee surgeries and, problems with your joints and your body, it doesn't just go away if you take a year off. Those things are always still going to be there, and every situation is different. But, some people, a year off, you can, rehab and heal your nagging injuries, but others, if you take a year off, it can still just take one bad fall to blow a knee out, whether you take that year off or not. So, but yeah, with Rollins, being so injury prone as it appears he might be, plus his body has really gone through hell over the last 10 or 12 years. And his durability is in question now. And that sucks because I was looking forward to seeing this run through for Rollins. But we're going to be talking all about the update with Rollins and his injury and what it might mean for creative plans here in the future, because CM Punk is supposed to face him on November 1st, and that's just in a couple of weeks. So we're going to have to get one way or the other. We're going to have some sort of resolution to the championship situation if Rollins is in fact hurt. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Good to see Tony as well in here. Ben Espinoza, Ajax is in the house. Good to see you, man. Denny Downbad. Anybody else that's saying hello as we get started here, good to see you, and thank you for being here. And happy almost weekend. Normally it's a weekend. Today it's a Friday. So happy Friday to one and all. Here's what's going to be on tap for this weekend. Like I said, unfortunately, I'm going to be busy at work all day tomorrow, so I'm going to miss WrestleDream. I'm not going to be able to watch it or see it, but I will give you my thoughts on that on Monday night. We'll be up here Monday night after Raw. We'll do a review because hopefully we'll have some information on what's going to be happening with the World Heavyweight Championship on Monday night. So we'll be here to talk about that, and we'll do a recap of WrestleDream and what all happens tomorrow on that show. Also, on Sunday, we are back for another classic watch along. I know it's Halloween season, but we have done every Halloween Havoc except for 1990 and 1992. I looked at both of those cards, and the 1990 show looked great. The problem is it's only 2 hours long, less than 2 hours long, and I like to do at least 3-hour watch-alongs on Sunday nights. And the other one, 1992, was longer but shittier. It wasn't a very good card. It was headlined by like Sting and Jake Roberts, coal miner's glove match. It looked okay. So instead of doing a Halloween Havoc on Sunday, we're going to do another No Mercy. And I checked all of those out, and we have not done No Mercy 2001. This is right at the tail end of the Alliance and the Invasion angle and all that stuff. I would be attending Survivor Series the very next month. So this is... I think an Angle and Austin and RVD match, and this is right around the time of the Invasion. So Sunday night, we're going to watch No Mercy 2001. And then I figured what I would do is save one of those two Halloween Havocs, maybe that 1991, for possibly Halloween night. Halloween is a Friday this year, and I might not work. So if I'm home, we'll do a Halloween night stream. I'm not quite sure yet if I'm going to work that out or not, but I probably will be here. And if I'm not busy, maybe we'll do a Halloween night, Halloween Havoc watch-along 2 Fridays from now. So keep that in mind, and I'll let you guys know if that winds up being the case. But other than that, that's all you really have to worry about. We're going to be off tomorrow, missing WrestleDream, but I will gladly receive social media updates. So if you want to tweet me, at Good Mic Work, and let me know what's going on in WrestleDream, what's happening, what the results are so far. I will be eyeballing my phone all night, and then we'll be up here on Sunday to have our nice, fun, classic watch-along, which we missed last week because I decided it would be a better idea to go to my sister's house and watch the Lions get their asses kicked. But we probably wouldn't have done one on Sunday anyway because last Sunday was Bound for Glory, which we're also going to talk about later. So anyway, that's kind of what's on tap for this afternoon. But we need to open up with the big story that's been kind of making the rounds this week and dominating some headlines, and that is what is going on with Andrade. Now, Andrade debuted or re-debuted, returned to AEW on the October 1st Dynamite. We have not only have we not seen Andrade on AEW TV since then, his name has not even been mentioned once. So something is up. Donde está Andrade? That's what everybody's been asking all week. Where is Andrade? Where is Andrade? Well, turns out, oh my God, this is so messy, that WWE has informed Andrade that apparently he does have a non-compete. He does have a 90-day non-compete, and we're also going to talk about the possibility of him having a 1-year non-compete. So basically, I'm going to give you some information from PW Insider, a little bit from Dave, and a little bit from Fightful Select. So PW Insider this week, here's kind of what they thought. Here's a basic summary of what they were reporting this week. And the initial belief was that since he was cut, or Andrade was cut outright for wellness policy violations, that he wasn't going to be paid his 90 days and would be free to work anywhere. When you're fired, you're usually fired. And that was the belief internally within WWE with Andrade himself and everybody in AEW and who knows Andrade. All were under the impression that since these were wellness policy violations and he was fired, which means normally when you have a 90-day non-compete, you're paid for those 90 days. So in a wellness policy violation type of firing, you don't get paid for those 90 days, which means you don't have a 90-day no-compete. So Andrade re-signed a multi-year deal with AEW and debuted on Dynamite a couple of weeks ago. But as soon as he turned up in AEW, all of a sudden, WWE decided to clarify to him that even though he isn't getting paid for his 90-day no-compete, he's still subject to the no-compete. Huh? One WWE source says the company does not want a system where someone can violate wellness policies and then go work somewhere else immediately. It's a loophole that WWE cannot allow to exist. This was from one WWE source that PW Insider spoke to. So this says basically that they understand that this is a loophole. And that's what I said about Andrade. I was just speculating, wildly speculating when he left WWE a few weeks back, or when we got word of that. I was one of the first ones that said it sounds to me like he was unhappy and he found a way to wiggle out of his deal. And I mean, honestly, that's what I would do. We've seen a couple of instances like this. I feel like Tony Storm and Jeff Hardy kind of had like similar situations. Jeff just wandered off into the crowd at a house show and they fired him. Then they had remorse and they wanted to bring him back. He's like, no, fuck you, I'm out of here. And I think Tony Storm was kind of like the same thing. They just walked out, didn't she? I don't know what the hell happened there. But, sometimes you have talent that is unhappy. And if you do have a talent that understands, like they might even have one wellness policy violation already. Well, I've already failed one wellness test. Shit, if I just fail one or two more, I can just get myself canned and I can go jump and work somewhere the very next day and not have to worry about any contract shit or anything. So I had early on speculated that maybe that's something that Andrade was doing. He was going to purposely get himself fired so he can just be gone free and clear. That's a smart strategy. That's something I would do if I was really, really unhappy and I knew I had a job waiting for me somewhere else. I'd get myself shit canned too. Who cares at this point? Andrade's been in WWE twice. It's not like there's a bridge to burn there. Shit ain't working out for him. So he probably won't go back there ever again. So what's the difference? And I was wondering if maybe he kind of orchestrated that himself to get him fired. So the fact that this is now being brought up and WWE understands this is a loophole, but at the same time it's telling Andrade, oh, no, sorry, you're still obligated to... you still have to sit out the 90 days for the no compete, but you're also not going to be paid for it. There is no fucking way that would hold up in court. So what it sounds like to me is that WWE was fine with Andrade leaving. They didn't care at all until he turned up in WWE. Or I'm sorry, in AEW. Then WWE's like, oh, they don't want to look bad or anything. And now they're trying to backtrack here and send cease and desists to AEW and inform Andrade that he still is subject to that no compete, which is just fucking ridiculous. So Fightful Select also had a bunch of info on this week as well. I'm going to read you not the whole article because it's a lot, but I'm going to read you just a little bit of it. And here's what Fightful Select said about this mess. Now, sources that we spoke with familiar with the situation said they didn't believe it was AEW or Andrade's fault. Rumors of the situation emerged internally last week with the belief that WWE had just effectively told Andrade he was done without any knowledge of a non-compete. At that point, Andrade began taking additional bookings and signed with AEW. He had a team of representatives speak with Tony Khan, and Tony and Andrade saw each other for the first time the day of his return. In the past, WWE's period of contract termination notice was referred to as a non-compete, but wasn't actually that, as the talent would get paid. So even though there's a 90-day no-compete, you're still getting paid, I guess your guarantee, during those 90 days. So it's not like you're just forbidden to work. That's why if Andrade's not getting paid the 90 days, there's no way this would hold up in court, but it might take longer than the 90 days to go to court for it anyway, which I think is the point of this write-up here. Goes on to say that WWE staff, roster, and sources also believed he was gone from the company with no additional time left on his deal ever since Andrade was fired by WWE. No agents we spoke to have ever heard of pay being docked during a wellness violation either. We're told by AEW sources that this absence did affect immediate creative plans for Dynamite and WrestleDream, as did the Kota Ibushi injury. However, there appears to be no bad blood towards Andrade, and the working plan is for him to compete in AEW when the situation is cleared up. A number of people have indicated to Fightful Select that Andrade has a very good lawyer, but didn't specify if he was fighting it. The 90-day period is often referred to as a non-compete, but is actually more of a notice of contract expiration because talent gets paid. PW Insider reported that Andrade would not be getting paid during that non-compete. The conflicting element is that in any court situation, to fight it would extend past the 90 days. But there is one thing that differs about this from the norm, and that is that the Wrestling Observer reported that WWE has a clause in their contracts where a person at cause can be extended for a year. And so Fightful tracked down the language of that clause in the contract. Now, this isn't specifically Andrade's contract, but this is apparently in all the new TKO contracts. One little snippet here from that, and I quote, upon termination of this agreement by promoter for breach of terms For breach of the terms hereof, wrestler shall not work, appear, or perform in any capacity for any professional wrestling, sports entertainment, mixed martial arts, and or ultimate fighting organization, promotion, or entity not owned or controlled by promoter or any affiliated or subsidiary company thereof in the United States for a period of up to 1 year from the date of such expiration or termination, provided, however, that if no lesser period is specified by the promoter in the notice of termination, such period shall be 1 year. So if this were to be brought to court, there's absolutely no way Andrade would be held to a 1 year no compete. That seems impossible, but it is in there, and we don't know if it's on Andrade's deal or not, but it even says, the period could be up to 1 year. So I don't know how they're all going to work this out, but it sounds like it's probably going to take about 90 days at least to figure all this shit out anyway, which means, Andrade probably won't be back in AEW for a couple of months, which sucks. And the whole thing seems completely pointless. Now, Tony Khan actually had his WrestleDream media call yesterday, and he was asked by our friend John Alba about the situation, and he wouldn't elaborate on the details, but he did say that he's excited to see what's next for Andrade in AEW. So Tony Khan, basically in so many words, if you read between the lines, is just saying, hey, I can't talk about it, but as soon as we figure it all out, he'll be back on AEW TV, and that's the plan. So it doesn't sound like there's any heat on him or anything like that, but it does suck that it kind of derailed whatever they had planned for Andrade creatively and, kind of derailed him. He's ready to work, but now he can't. He's got to work out this mess first, and it sounds like everything would be in his favor. I seriously doubt he's going to be held out of competition for a year, but the 90 days might wind up being legit, because if he does want to fight it, and even if he wins, it could take 3 months to get that done anyway. So the whole situation is just shitty, and it's really easy to see here what happened. If this was really the case, then WWE would have made that clear to Andrade. Like, I think in WWE's stupid mind, they were just under the assumption that Andrade left AEW on bad terms, which he didn't really, and he's not going to go back there. So when he turned up there, then all of a sudden they want to implement the 90-day when I don't think they gave a shit. And I think if Andrade would not have turned up in AEW, if he would have turned up somewhere randomly in Mexico, they wouldn't have cared at all. So it's all about AEW. It always is with them. Tony Khan, just has a fucking 3-bedroom condo right there in WWE's head, rent fucking free. They are counter-programming him. They're trying to cock-block wrestlers. It's all so pointless. And we've seen these situations on both sides. We've seen it in AEW and WWE. I remember it's not the same thing because he's not an active wrestler, but I was a little bit turned off by the William Regal stuff in AEW. I get that you sign a contract, you need to fulfill that contract, but somebody like Regal, I feel like Tony Khan, while he might be very, very disappointed, about Regal leaving, he should have just let him go. What's the difference? So, Regal he was allowed to go back to WWE, but he couldn't appear on television for a year, which is fine. I guess that's fair. If Tony Khan's going to let you out of your deal early, there's got to be some conditions. I understand that, but what was the point of that condition? What would have, William Regal appearing the very next week on NXT wouldn't have done anything to AEW, just like Andrade going to AEW wouldn't have done anything to WWE. I understand if this is a Punk or a Cody or a Hangman Page or a Roman Reigns or something like this happens, then yeah, okay, go by the book. Make sure that this megastar that you have invested millions into doesn't just show up on your competition the very next day. Totally understandable. I'd understand that perspective from WWE and AEW. But like I said, a lot of this stuff, should be a case-by-case basis. And in Andrade's case, he wasn't even back in WWE long enough to do anything to where it matters. Let him go to AEW tomorrow. What is the difference if he's on Dynamite tonight or in 3 months? There is no fucking difference at all. It does not make a bit of difference to your business, to your success, to what you're doing creatively, to anything that WWE is doing. And the strength of their company and the popularity level of their company, Andrade, it does not matter. And so I just wish that stuff like that would be taken into account. This is this guy's life. Let him live his life. He didn't want to be there, clearly. It didn't work out. And from now on, if you want to make sure, if you want to start writing this into contracts saying, hey, we're not going to let you get purposely fired. Again, I don't know how you would ever prove that, but you could put some language in contracts if we have reason to believe that you were working the system in order to get terminated, then you're subject to, more no competes or, whatever. If there's a legal way to do that, I don't know. I ain't no lawyer. I'm just sexy. So I don't know what the legal, terms are there, how you would write that in and how you would even write that in based on suspicion. We suspect this is what you might have done. How the hell do you ever prove that? So this is an unfortunate loophole, and AEW doesn't have, I don't even think it has wellness policy violations right now or wellness policy tests. WWE does, and they have the policy in place. Hey, if you fail 3 of these, you are fired. They might have to change things up, because if this does go to court, and Andrade, wins this case or gets good news, that will set a precedent, for the future. And I think WWE wants to keep this in mind because they're so paranoid about people doing this. But if I was them, I really wouldn't worry about it. It's something you want to try to protect. This isn't something you want to happen on a routine basis. But if you ever have a situation like you have right now with Andrade and he's gone, just cut your losses and let him go. What did you do with him to begin with? What did you do with him when he was there to begin with? I just don't understand why it would matter. And if Tony Khan has the same situation, he was dealing with Miro and Malachi Black clearly, didn't want to be there. With those guys too, I would have just let them go and saved my money, and just, what's the difference? And Miro and Alistair are both on WWE TV right now. Has that drastically affected the business of AEW? No, Tony Khan could have let them go a year ago when they wanted to and let them go back to WWE. It doesn't matter with talent like this. It really doesn't matter with any talent, to be honest. But I do think if a Cody or Roman left AEW or a Hangman, left, or a Cody or Roman left WWE or a Hangman left AEW, that could very negatively affect them. Hangman, Darby, Mox, guys like that. If somebody bounces up and leaves, that could affect you, sure. But nobody, there's no Hogan anymore. It's not like 1987 Hogan, where if he goes, the whole fucking business collapses. It's not like that. So it shouldn't matter to these companies. But I understand it's a business. You sign contracts. You have to live up to the terms of those contracts and whatnot. But something like this just seems really petty and really stupid and a waste of time. It's a waste of time to worry about this. Like if WWE is so great, because they constantly jerk themselves off all over television every day, all over social media. Here's the record-setting gates, and here's our popularity. Here's how many retweets we got. Here's how many YouTube views we got. And if they're so strong and if they're the alpha male, they shouldn't give a fuck what Andrade or AEW does. But they're so paranoid. They are literally obsessed with the existence of this company. They're going out of their way to counter-program, constantly just bullying, punching down. What's the point of that? If you're so big, bad, and strong, and you're as strong a company as you constantly remind the fans that you are, the attitude backstage is like, who gives a shit if Andrade goes to AEW? Let him. We'll still kick their asses. Like, why isn't that the attitude? Why are they so worried about shit that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things? So Andrade, if he doesn't go to AEW right now, he's just going to go there in 3 months. What's the difference? What is the fucking difference? It just seems like a stupid battle to fight. I'm a big pick your battles guy. And I don't believe that every battle should be fought to the fucking death. And if I'm in WWE, if I'm a Triple H or someone in management there, if I'm a Nick Khan and I'm so confident in our success and the size of our business and the global reach that the WWE has, why would I give a fuck what Andrade, who's someone we were barely using, was even doing, or where he goes if he gets let go? And then I want to cock block him? No, you can't go there for 90 days. Why? Why? So fucking stupid. So anyway, sounds like Andrade will just have a little bit of a delay getting into AEW, which is fine. But the whole situation is messy. And if he is obligated to serve this 1 year, there is no way that's going to hold up. I just cannot see a universe where a court would say, yeah, tough shit for you, Andrade. You got to sit out a year. No, there's no way. But the 90-day stuff, that's probably going to wind up being the case now, as fighting it in court might take longer than that. So we will see. All the best to Andrade. I was happy to see him back in AEW, and I got to admit, I was concerned when we didn't see him again, and I was wondering what the case was there and if everything was all right. But we'll probably see him shortly here in a couple of months. Brian Adams, thanks for the $2. Andrade pulled a Brock Lesnar pretty much. Brock Lesnar got out of his deal too. And all the years ago, Brock took WWE to court because he wanted to work New Japan. And they told him he couldn't. And then he went to court. And I believe he won because he was able to work over there. And he renamed the F5 to the Verdict. So Brock went through this whole thing 20-something years ago with WWE. And, I know at one point the FCC was, trying to do away with, non-competes and stuff, but I don't think it ever saw through. So non-competes are still a thing. But in terms of what's going on in WWE, no, William Charlotte would not get any heat. This has nothing to do with her at all. No, Charlotte's bulletproof. Charlotte gets no heat, at least backstage with management. She might get it with her peers a little bit, and certainly with the fans, but not with management. And they've been long since divorced before any of this even happened. So she wouldn't just get heat by association. No way. Not at all. I don't even really mind the non-competes. I don't mind the 90-day non-competes because they're only 90 days. It's 3 months, and in those non-competes, you are being paid. But in Andrade's case, they're trying to tell him he's not going to be paid, but he still has to sit out. Oh, the fuck I am. That's why I would not survive in the pro wrestling universe. I would definitely breach my contract, and then I would be cursing out management on social media. I would be a total bridge-burning nightmare. I would not be able to be told what I can and can't do. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I don't like being told what I can do and what I can't do. I'll do what the fuck I want. I'm a grown man. And I just wouldn't be able to operate in that environment. I'd be worse than CM Punk. I'd be constantly causing problems back there because I'm like, oh, hell no. So anyway, all the best to Andrade, and we'll hope we'll get him back on AEW TV, I guess, by the end of the year, probably. Maybe he can re-debut at World's End at the very same show that he had his final match on a couple years ago. So all the best to Andrade. As we move on to the other big story of the week, that, of course, is Seth Rollins. Now, I wasn't here on Monday to watch Raw because it aired at 5 a.m. in the morning. We came up here on Monday night, watched an NXT Classic show instead. But I did see what happened on Raw this past Monday, and I did release a quick YouTube short on my thoughts on it just a few hours after it happened. But by then, we hadn't really known exactly what the story was here. On Monday, it still was up in the air. We didn't know if this was a creative pivot that WWE was making because they wanted to shake things up. Because what we saw on Monday night with the Vision attacking Seth Rollins, that's something that all of us was expecting to probably see next year. And here it's happened already. So Braun Breaker spearing Seth Rollins and sawing him in half and attacking him. Heyman looked surprised, but then joined the Vision at the end, and we were wondering what that was about. And speculation started very early on, once that happened, that Seth Rollins might have been injured on that big coast-to-coast diving headbutt spot he did at Crown Jewel on Cody Rhodes. And when he landed that, he did come up funny on the shoulder. And you could tell. He was also spotted around Perth that weekend with his arm in a sling. On Monday night, when that attack happens, you can see him still favoring that shoulder. So once all of that was done and the speculation started, another big thing that fans were speculating on is this just a rehash of what we saw at SummerSlam with him coming out with the crutches and revealing that he's not injured? And I shot that down right away. I said, I don't think so. This definitely feels different. And plus, if that was the case, and this whole thing is a ruse, that means he's going to have to take an ass kicking just for the sake of the ruse. I'm not buying that. We still don't know for sure, but I'm not buying the fact that Rollins is faking yet another injury. Reports are that he did, in fact, suffer a torn rotator cuff on that spot, will require surgery, and will be out probably past WrestleMania of next year. Now, we're still not totally sure on any of that, but we're probably going to get some confirmation on that by this week because WWE is going to have to figure out something for this Monday's Raw and some explanations and possibly even what they're going to do with the World Heavyweight title. And I'm guessing that what we saw on Raw was your injury angle. I don't think they're going to say, oh, Rollins was injured on the headbutt with Cody. The Vision attacked him and put him out of action because he was also drug over and ate a tsunami or two, right, on Monday night, right? And you had Braun Breaker there holding the title up. So the Vision completely destroyed Seth Rollins. I don't feel like this could be a ruse. Like Seth Rollins is, just doing all of this to screw CM Punk again. I can't see that being the case this time. Definitely felt possible, during his first injury, but this one feels a little bit more legit, and it feels like our questions have been answered. The Vision attacked Seth Rollins due to an injury that he suffered, which is going to force him to vacate the World Heavyweight Championship. That's what we can assume right now, a couple of days ahead of this Monday's Raw. So what becomes of the title? Also on Raw, in the main event, this whole angle with Rollins, by the way, went down after the main event, which was a triple threat between CM Punk, LA Knight, and Jey Uso to determine Seth Rollins' new number one contender. CM Punk won that match and is set to face Seth Rollins on November 1st on Saturday night's main event. So that's in 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks from tomorrow. So what do they do? What does this mean? I'm hoping we're going to find out some information on Raw on Monday night if they make an announcement as to what the future is of the title. I'm worried that internally WWE doesn't know yet. They literally don't know. Now, they got a golden opportunity here because the next pay-per-view is Survivor Series, and it's not even for another month. Over a month. It's November 29th or something, right? I'll be there at Petco Park. So that is 6 weeks away still. You have time. I know it's War Games, okay? I know it's War Games, but maybe we can still do War Games and we can make the War Games the Wyatt 6 against the MFTs, and then the rest of the card can be a 16-man Survivor Series deadly game tournament. Bring back the skull. Remember the skull in the entranceway? Bring back that silly-ass song. Bring it all back and do a deadly game tournament. But Greg, CM Punk's already the number one contender. Good. CM Punk gets a bye. Because remember, in the deadly game, we had buys too. Wasn't Taker and Austin maybe got a bye? In the WrestleMania 4 tournament, Hogan and Andrade got a bye. Now, mostly that was done because of time constraints. Because back in those days, the deadly game tournament in 98, they had to squeeze a 16-man tournament into a 2-hour and 45-minute pay-per-view. They don't have to worry about that anymore. They can go longer. Pay-per-views are usually 3.5 hours these days from WWE. And if they traded closer to 4 hours and they try to trim down some of the 10-minute long fucking video packages and shit we get, then you can definitely fit it in. I saw a lot of people shooting down the idea, there's no time. What do you mean there's no time? There's more time than ever. There is more time than there has ever been for pay-per-views because WWE isn't confined to the cable system's, time limit or whatever. They can go as long as they want and just stream this shit on Peacock. Raw's a little bit different on Netflix. They got a little bit more of a harder out sometimes, but with the pay-per-views, they can pretty much do what they want. So you can do a longer show. I know Triple H likes 5-match cards, so I think his head would explode if he had to have a 20-match card. But if you did a tournament, that would be a lot of fun. And then in between, even in the WrestleMania 4 tournament and the Survivor Series tournament, there was matches in between to give you a breather, right? So, maybe that's where you do the War Games match. You do MFTs and Wyatt 6 before, the second half of the tournament or something like that. I don't know. Or you scrap War Games altogether because I would assume that the Vision was going to be a big part of War Games. So, I would love the idea of a tournament, but if War Games is still the plan, you do have kind of a replacement waiting right there for Seth Rollins in Brock Lesnar. Because Heyman did his introduction a while back. Heyman has brought up his name a couple of times. Heyman even hinted at Crown Jewel that if Rollins doesn't get it done against Cody, that the Vision knows what the next step will be. Maybe they mean Brock comes in to replace him. But the way it was set up on Monday, with Breaker holding the title, it looks like Breaker and Reed are going to be, the centerpieces now. So if Brock comes in to be the leader, they could basically continue the same story they have, but instead of Rollins, you do it with Brock. But now you got, CM Punk and Brock feud on the horizon. I don't know how that's going to work. The Brock and Braun Breaker stuff would be fun, and I still think there's possibilities for that in the future. And Breaker, kind of signifying that he wants to be the one to be the champion. He's holding the belt there in the image, Seth Rollins' belt. So I don't know what this means. And I don't know what match they're going to do at Saturday night's main event. And if they don't do a Survivor Series Deadly Game tournament, they might determine the new challenger rather quickly. And they might do one of those things where you're going to have a couple of triple threat matches, and the winner of those 2 triple threat matches face each other. Then the winner of that will face CM Punk on Saturday night's main event, and the winner of that will become the new heavyweight champion. It's probably going to be something like that, and we might actually see CM Punk win the title on Saturday night's main event. I wouldn't be surprised. The only way I think we wouldn't see that at this point is if, they do some sort of big tournament to determine the new challenger. But with WWE, I think that they're more likely to be lazy than creative with this. Because a lot of times when you have an unfortunate injury, as bad as this one sucks, that does mean there's an opportunity there. There is an opportunity to change something, give someone else an opportunity, move someone else up. Someone else can benefit from this. But I worry that WWE will just be lazy and say, okay, we're going to do 2 triple threat matches, and then the winner of those will face, and then the winner of that will face Punk on Saturday night's main event. Still, instead of doing a fun tournament where you could, maybe do a fun swerve or something like that. So I worry that WWE will not, will take the easiest, most laziest route here to get around this situation as possible, which sucks because, I would try to make the best out of a bad situation is what I would try to do creatively with WWE. And I think we'll get a lot of questions answered on Raw, at least hopefully. We're going to have to, number one, get an explanation from the Vision as to why in storyline they did what they did. We know why, but there's going to be a need to be a storyline reason for that, because what happened to Seth on Monday was something I would expect to happen to him if he would have lost to Cody Rhodes. So the fact that he won and that still happened to him, you gotta give a good explanation. And I think the explanation might be, that they don't need Seth Rollins. Bronson Reed beat Roman Reigns, and Braun Breaker is already, everybody calls him the future whenever they see him. So maybe they feel that with Paul Heyman behind them and them already proving that they can beat the WWE's top stars, why do they need Seth? I guess that's going to have to be the explanation, and Paul Heyman will probably be a pretty good one to deliver that message when we hear it on Monday. So all the best to Seth Rollins if this injury is confirmed, which we believe it is. This does not feel like it's a SummerSlam ruse or anything like that. This feels like it's legit. It feels like he is going to have to forfeit the title, and he is going to be out for several months, which completely sucks. I was so happy that his injury was fake at SummerSlam because that means we didn't have to lose Rollins for a year. We thought he tore his ACL. Well, shit, he's going to be out a year. And then he turned out he didn't. Sweet. He's here. He's not hurt. Good, because I wanted to see where the Vision stuff was going. And then the very next pay-per-view, he hurts himself. Oh, my God. So that sucks. All the best to Rollins. And I am, it sucks that it takes an injury like this to make you excited for Raw. But I am excited for Raw because I'm dying to know what the fuck they're going to do here. Dying to know what they're going to do with this situation. Like I said, Deadly Game would be fun. Be fun to watch something like that in Petco. Let's briefly just mention John Cena. Talked about him a second. We talked about Saturday night's main event a minute ago. John Cena just wanted today, I guess, to reiterate to the fans that he is in fact going to be done on December 13th, Saturday night's main event. Even here on this podcast, we've mentioned that maybe Cena will, on his retirement match, say, hey, I feel really bad for the shitty heel run I gave you guys. I feel like we wasted 5 months of my run, so I want to stick around another 5 months and do it right. And I'm going to retire at WrestleMania instead. But sounds like that's not going to be the case. He is done. He tweeted out this today, and I quote, despite any speculation or rumors, on July 6th, 2024, I announced I would retire from WWE in-ring participation. I am far from perfect, but strive to be a person whose word has value. December 13th, 2025 will be my final match. I am beyond grateful for every moment WWE has given me. I am excited for December 13th and look forward to seeing all of you one last time. And that is creeping up, guys. We are now less than 2 months away from the final ever John Cena match, which I believe, and most people do too, will be against Gunther. And John Cena squashing any rumors that he's going to continue on in the ring after this, and it's starting to get sad, isn't it? It really is. But I think we're going to see John Cena again. He's going to show back up on TV, probably with his hat and his Fruity Pebble bullshit on, but he's probably not going to, he's not going to wrestle. But I think we will see John Cena appear in WWE one day in the future. And I would not rule out, 8 years from now, him coming back like The Rock. I mean, he'll be old as shit. He'll be in his 50s, but, if he came back, maybe 5 years from now, 6 years from now, work a Saudi match, you can never rule that out. You can never rule it out, no matter how long someone stays retired. But, December is going to be it, and it's going to be sad. We're going to be here watching it together on the 13th. I will make sure I'm off that evening so we can watch it together. Here is a bizarre story. I don't even know what to make of this. Part of me wonders if somebody's messing with Uncle Dave here, because this came out of the Observer, and this has to do with a new hire from WWE, a new hire, a guy named Cyrus Kosari. Cyrus Kosari. He's been hired, and he's going to be leading WWE's transition, listen to this, into AI-based storytelling. So bizarre. Here's what the Observer said about this. And I quote, Paul Levesque said that Kosari would lead WWE's transition to AI-based storytelling and integrate AI into creative services like video and graphics. Now, we've already seen a little bit of that with that Americano shit. He said that this shift is inevitable when it comes to creative and pro wrestling. Kosari said he would both manage AI storytelling and be a liaison to the White House, as Levesque is taking more duties in politics in some form. What? WWE has a contract with Writer AI, a platform that has already been fed WWE content. The AI software has come up with what one person with knowledge of the situation called absurdly bad storylines. They pitched a storyline where Bobby Lashley, who I guess AI thought was still with the company, would come back as a wrestler who was obsessed with Japanese culture and history. So that's just one story that AI came up with. I don't even know what to make of this. I don't know how I'm supposed to talk about this. I cannot stand AI and AI slop. I don't use it. I don't have Chat GPT. I've never done anything AI related, which I know I'm falling behind. I actually need to probably get into this because, you got fucking 2-year-olds that can generate AI images now, and everybody's using them, and I find them so gross and so pathetic, and I will not even click on a YouTube video if I can tell it's got an AI thumbnail. Nope. Don't respect you. So I don't like AI at all. And now when you're hearing things like WWE's going to transition in AI-based storytelling, I mean, it can't be any worse than Road Dogg, but at the same time, like, really? Like, are you serious with this shit? And this shit with Triple H in the White House and everything, and trust me, I want to barf my guts out every time he's sitting and standing behind the orange fat dipshit when he's signing some, insanely stupid shit into law or whatever. I don't like that at all. But Triple H, at the same time, with all that being said, this is a job that it feels like he was born for. Like he's for the last, when did he get there? 1995, and then just a couple of years after that, he had some pull and some stroke because he had really strong friends. The first year he had stroke, right there. So this is something that he's been preparing for and being trained for his whole life. Plus, he worked side by side with Vince McMahon for so long, and he took over as the heir to the throne that we all thought was going to go to Shane, and it went to Triple H. And he really seems to love pro wrestling, has a firm understanding of the history of pro wrestling, knows a lot more than Vince McMahon ever did about that type of stuff. You see all these videos on social media of him walking through talent. There was one up recently with Stephanie Vicaire, but when Penta came in, he did one with Penta, and all these videos of Triple H, in the arena going through the entrances and how they're going to look. He's very hands-on with that type of stuff. Seems to enjoy the process. That's why I always scratch my head when WWE does things that seem so lazy, because Triple H really feels like he wants to give his all in this. So when you see things that come across as lazy, I'm like, man, all that effort, you're out there, spending all your time walking Stephanie Vaquer through her entrance, and this is the type of shit you come up with for turning John Cena back into a babyface. It's just so phoned in. It's so uninspiring. It's so lazy, and like, what the fuck? So if they're moving into AI-based storytelling, honestly, WWE's storytelling can be so horrible, so carny, so stupid at times. I honestly can't see it getting worse, to be honest. But at the same time, like, shifting into AI, obviously people are going to have to oversee the AI, and if they write a story, a human is going to have to, approve it and tweak it and whatnot in case, it suggests that an AEW wrestler comes in and is a part of something. So AI yet clearly, I don't think, quite understands what pro wrestling is or how to write for it. And the fact that WWE is going to be looking to this, and I mean, that's TKO does not care about anybody in that company. So people who have a job that could be threatened by AI might want to start looking for another job. The video package department, and all that stuff. Like, AI can start doing this pretty soon if it's not doing it already. And this is a very, very weird story that I don't want to think about because, AI can be fascinating on one hand. It can be absolutely frustrating on another because of how many people are, relying on it. Even YouTube videos now. Like, I click on a YouTube video and if I hear, you can tell AI voices are getting much, much better, but you can still tell when it's an AI voice. And if I realize if I'm watching something for 30 seconds, I'm like, oh shit, this is AI, I click off. Even if the information in there is good, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it from a fucking robot, so I just click off, AI videos instantly if I ever, come across them. It just sucks. So anyway, AI storytelling could be coming to WWE. I never thought in a million years I would say I miss Vince McMahon, but maybe I do. Actually, no, I don't. Get a look at it. Get a load of this fool. Check out the haircut on this guy. Look at Vince here. So Vince, I don't know who this fella is he's with. I believe he met a bunch of fans outside of court the other day because Vince McMahon was in court on Thursday, I guess yesterday, was in court yesterday to face that reckless driving charge that he got from last year. Now, there was a video of him arriving at the courthouse, and there was a bunch of fans there waiting to meet him. And then this one picture, this guy's got a WWF logo on his jacket like he's an old announcer or something. So I don't know who that is. I don't recognize him from back in the day, but maybe Vince saw the WWF jacket and just decided to take a picture with the guy. And he went over and spoke to some fans for a while before heading into court. And he did pick up somewhat of a win here in court as he was given, this is according to TMZ, by the way, and I quote, Vince McMahon faced his reckless driving case on Thursday. He was given access to a special program where if he meets a certain set of criteria, his charges will be dropped in 1 year. A Stamford, Connecticut judge allowed the former WWE honcho into an accelerated pre-trial rehabilitation that reportedly ensures if McMahon keeps his nose clean, donates $1,000 to charity, which is the equivalent of me donating a half a penny, cutting a penny in half and giving it to charity. If he donates $1,000 to charity and adheres to driving lawfully, his case will be tossed out in October of 2026. So all Vince McMahon has to do is, number one, not drive like an idiot, donate 1 penny to charity, and not shit in any other women's hair. If he can do that, his reckless driving charge should be tossed out a year from now. So that is good for Vince. And man, that haircut, that is villain haircut if I've ever seen it. Yeah. Vince McMahon got out of that one too. But it just sucks because I read a little bit more in the article. His lawyer was saying, yeah, the judge understood that, this is just a special circumstance and, he shouldn't be punished. Vince McMahon, you can hear so many shoot interviews throughout the years of people talking about what a fucking madman Vince McMahon is on the road. All they had to do was play some of that in court. Like, here's testimony from no less than 20 former WWE employees that have the misfortune of being in a car with this maniac, and he drives like a fucking psycho. And he's got in wrecks before, right? Remember, we just talked about Survivor Series Deadly Game. Vince was in the wheelchair during the fall of 1998, and I'm pretty sure he suffered that in like a motorcycle accident. Or he went down tearing down the road in his motorcycle and he flew off or something, broke his coccyx, just like Napoleon Dynamite's grandma. So I don't know how, rich people just constantly get off easy. You got people with, low-level weed dealers that are doing 50 years, and this fucking nutcase can virtually walk away from a reckless driving charge that could have killed someone if he just does the most minor shit, like donate $1,000 to charity and not get in trouble again for a year. My God. Way to go, Vince. Big win in court for you. Why are you in court all the time? So weird. Oh, some more good WWE news. My God, what they have done to poor Ridge Holland. Jesus Christ. So Ridge Holland has been cut by WWE. His contract is going to expire in about a month, and WWE informed him that they would not be renewing his deal. What sucks about this is that Ridge Holland is currently sitting out due to an injury that he suffered in a TNA match. WWE had him work a TNA match, which, by the way, he does not get paid extra for. He got injured in that match that wasn't even in a WWE ring. He's currently rehabbing that injury. He's still some time away from being 100% and being able to get back in the ring, and now WWE cuts him. So that's absolutely shitty. He posted on Instagram that his contract will not be renewed and will expire on November 14th. He did say that he will be paid, or he says WWE will pay for his rehab, but his guaranteed pay will end on the 14th, which means he's still going to be injured after his contract expires and he can't work, which means he won't be getting any money. And he already took a pretty massive pay cut because he was on the roster. He was on the main roster. Remember, he was called up in 2021. And of course he was there for the, Big E injury and all of that. And he was on the main roster, but then they moved him back to NXT. I think during that time his contract had expired. They re-signed him to a new deal, but they re-signed him not to the main roster money he was making, but to an NXT deal, which came out somewhere in the neighborhood of a $200,000 pay cut. He took a $200,000 pay cut to stay with NXT. Then he gets injured in a TNA ring because of their working agreement, and now WWE cuts him and will not be paying him beyond November 14th, after he had already taken a large pay cut. And that sucks for him. It's not a good look for WWE. It's just yet another one of these illustrations of how TKO doesn't give a fuck. And this is nothing new for WWE either. I don't want to put all this on TKO because, during the pandemic, WWE just cut so many people, and all the people they have fired, virtually for no reason. A few times fans have spoken up and gotten people rehired, and I feel like all that outrage for R-Truth, I was right there with you. But I feel like this is worse. Where's that energy for Ridge Holland? R-Truth, of course, had so many years of service in WWE. He's a very beloved, star in wrestling for a couple of decades now. But with Ridge Holland, when you look at the two situations, Ridge Holland was done more wrong than R-Truth was. R-Truth was just somebody who was let go that the fans didn't want to see go. And WWE brought him back to curb some of that backlash. But Ridge Holland doesn't have that popularity level. But his situation makes WWE look even worse than they did with R-Truth, but I think fans just in general are less mad about it. You still have one contingent of very, very ignorant and stupid fans that still feel like he's getting what he deserved because of the Big E injury. Just imagine thinking that was malicious. Imagine the type of ignorance it must take to believe that he did that to Big E on purpose. Even Big E doesn't fault Ridge Holland, and Big E lost his career over it. So the fact that Big E is handling it, with maturity and respect and dignity, and you got a bunch of these fuck-faced little virgins running around here thinking he got what he deserved, fuck the fuck off to those fans. So no, he didn't get what he deserved. This was a shitty thing to do. And again, I got no problem if WWE says, hey, this guy's contract is coming up. We don't want to keep him, so we're going to not extend your contract. We're not going to renew it. And then you get informed of that, and that's just the breaks. That's the business you're in. That's the soup you swim in. If you are a wrestler, you have to be prepared for stuff like this to happen. But sometimes in a situation like this, the fact that nobody in WWE thought to themselves, hey, he's injured. I know in AEW they pause contracts. Do they not do that in WWE? Like, if you're injured in WWE, why don't they just pause your contract? And then they'll pick it back up when you're healthy again, which means you can still get paid. So if they did that to Holland, if they paused his contract right now and say, hey, we'll resume it when you're healthy again, then he can continue getting paid. And then when his contract is up, he'll, or at least get paid his guarantee. Then when he returns, they resume his contract, he continues to get paid. Then they can tell him that they're not going to re-sign him or re-up his deal when it's up, in a couple of months or whatever. That would be the more fair way to do it. But now you're literally taking money away from this guy because he can't work. He can't work because of an injury that he suffered with you, not even in your fucking ring, somewhere you sent him to go. You sent him off-site. You sent him off-site to work a match. He got hurt, and now you're going to cut him. And a lot of talent and a lot of fans, rightfully so, are very disappointed about this and angered by this, and I don't blame anybody. This is one of those situations where this is just shitty. There's no way to slice this up any other way than it's WWE being shitty. This is a shitty thing for them to do. If Ridge Holland was perfectly healthy right now and he was on NXT TV and WWE informed him that on November 14th his contract is up and they're not going to re-sign it, that's business. That's the breaks. I feel bad for him, but that's just the breaks. It's the way it goes. But this is a completely different situation. This is cutting somebody while they are injured, and now they have to figure out a way to make ends meet. Because it's not like Ridge Holland was a fucking millionaire or anything like that. He was making NXT money, which because of the Jasmine Nix situation, we know is under $100,000. NXT talent, makes somewhere in the neighborhood of $75,000. That's crazy. I wouldn't go work there for that money. Fuck no. I make more than that now. So, what? It's just a shitty amount of money that they make, and I think there are some NXT talents there that make more than like the $75K, but you learned a lot with that Jasmine Nix situation. And, when you do the math, what that probably meant for Ridge Holland and the type of money that he was making. So it's a little bit harder for him. It's not like he's got millions of dollars, saved up in the bank from all of his contracts. He's probably, living a relatively normal life, and now WWE's cutting him, and he's going to not be able to work because he's a wrestler, but he can't wrestle because he's hurt. And I just think WWE should do something else for him, or at least pay him through his injury or through the end of his rehab, pay for his rehab, obviously, and then pay him his guarantee until his rehab is done is what they should do. But he's just a number on a sheet. He means nothing to them, and TKO and WWE are just evil. Here's something that's not evil. Apparently, according to Bodyslam.net, Def Rebel could be on the way out. They're believed to be working through their final contract, but we have no word on when exactly that contract ends. So this is very, very good news. Def Rebel absolutely sucks. The CFOs were tremendous, but they, I think, are disbanded now, so they don't even exist anymore, so I don't think they can come back. Jim Johnson is too old. I loved a Jim Johnson back in the day. I'm a Jim Johnson mark, but let's be serious. He coming back in and being the head of WWE's music department, I cannot see that happening. But I'm just reading the text there. But I wouldn't be opposed to Jim Johnson sitting in at some point, or maybe being a consultant on some music. That would be fine. But all I really care about, regardless of what they do with the music, is that Def Rebel gets the fuck out. And apparently a lot of WWE talent has been requesting or granted, I don't know what's going on there, some of their old theme music. We had Shinsuke Nakamura coming out to his old theme. The Street Profits had their old theme. Kairi Sane had her little pirate theme. And apparently others have requested their old music back as well. Now, some people have, like Sami Zayn went back to his old music. And so we've had some CFO music is still around. But for a while, they were trying to fade all of that out and just use Def Rebel stuff. But Def Rebel stuff sucks. And the fans know it, and they've been complaining about it. And if they are on their final contract, this is wonderful news. Now, I worry WWE is just going to start using AI for their music. But Def Rebel is absolutely awful, and I'm really glad they're on their way out if this is true. So we don't know how long the contract lasts. Maybe it's at the end of this year, or maybe it's a different month, or maybe there's a few months left, 6 months or 8 months, or who knows. But apparently there are strong rumors about them being on the final year. And I cannot imagine a world where WWE hears all of the criticisms of Def Rebel and then they decide to re-sign with them for another 5-year deal. That would just be crazy. So hopefully WWE's music department is going to go through another overhaul there, and they'll have somebody else coming in. And it's good to hear some of the old CFO's music making its way back to TV. So WWE going through some music changes apparently. Also, Jacob Fatu. This is kind of interesting. Also, Bodyslam.net is reporting that Jacob Fatu is going to be out with a non-wrestling related injury that could keep him out well into next year. Now, he's scheduled, anybody got an eye on social media? He's supposed to face Drew McIntyre tonight on SmackDown. Does WWE have a SmackDown preview of any kind up yet? No, it's still there. Okay. So WWE right now, as of an hour ago, is advertising Jacob Fatu versus Drew McIntyre tonight in San Jose. So that match is still on. So what I'm curious about is if this story, number one, is true. Well, if it's not true, then Jacob Fatu should wrestle the match tonight with no problem. If the story is true, then we might see either a pre-match attack prior to the match where he's taken out, or maybe he's healthy enough to work this match and they run an injury angle on him during the match that knocks him out. So we will see, but there is a report that I don't know what the non-wrestling related injury is, but it's going to keep him out a while. So we'll see in what form he is in. I know he was in Perth. He did he was brawling with McIntyre. He hasn't wrestled a match in about a month though. So he has been out of the ring for a while, but he has been physical and he has been active. So if he's hurt and this story is legit, I expect them to run some kind of an angle tonight on SmackDown in that match, whether it be before the match, after the match, during the match, or whatever. This must mean that he's at least physically healthy enough to do something physical, unless they show, those typical backstage attacks where you don't see the attack. You just see the camera running up on, a beaten up star. They might do something like that. But Jacob Fatu doesn't seem like the type of guy to fall victim to that type of thing. So I'm hoping that he's healthy enough to get through this match and then they just do something to write him off of TV, or better yet, this story is false. Nothing's wrong with Jacob Fatu and he's going to be just fine. That's what I hope is true. I hope this story is false because I don't want to lose Jacob Fatu until next year. I'd rather have him around in the ring doing shit. So we'll see what goes down on SmackDown tonight. Feel free to tweet me updates about the show. I will be at work, but I am curious to know what happens in that match tonight with Drew and Fatu. Jacob Fatu. Speaking of injuries, here's another bad one. My God, Kota Ibushi. Jesus, man. So he was injured this past week on Collision versus Josh Alexander. There was this fall from the top rope, just looked kind of ugly. Kota came all the way down, kind of face first to the ground, and it was hard to see really what happened, but he broke his femur. Now, his femurs, that's the big, thick bone in your leg, in the upper part of your leg. And that is, just the thought of that is just, ugh. He kind of finished the match too. It wasn't even like a gross out bump. Like when you watch it, you're not gonna have to turn your head and be like, oh, gross, his bone flew out of his leg. It's not like Sid. You could barely even tell what happened to him, but there was footage of him being taken away on the stretcher and whatnot. And he has provided an update saying that he believes he could be out up to 2 years. And what makes this sad is that I feel like this is kind of the end of Kota Ibushi. The things he has done to his body and the style he has wrestled has been so crazy over the years. The neck problems and everything that he's had happen to him. I just cannot see Kota Ibushi ever even coming close to resembling who he used to be and some of the crazy things we could see from him. It's just sad, he's just his style. He's just so many injuries, and he had the ankle injury there, or the foot injury that was really causing problems, and then a neck problem as well too. And now he broke his femur. Jesus Christ. Which has got to be unbelievably painful. There we go. Lost my place in my notes. We back. All right, so that covers the Kota Ibushi injury. All the best to him. That's one of the more heartbreaking stories of the week, knowing that it might be the end of old Kota there. It's such a bummer. Also, some news on Chris Jericho. Of course, there's been a lot of rumors surrounding Jericho lately about him potentially returning to the WWE because apparently his contract in AEW is up at the end of this year. Does not sound like he's going to be re-signing with them. Even though I think he's going to maintain a good relationship with them, doesn't sound like he's going to be coming back. Well, he's also announced the next Jericho cruise. Now, I went on one of these cruises 5 years ago. I went back in 2020, right before COVID started, and it was really fun. I would definitely do it again, but, it's hard to do trips like that. So I don't know when I'll ever get back on the Jericho boat, but it was fun when I went. And now he's up to, the 6th or 7th cruise. Oh, yeah, the 7th cruise. And I think I went to the 2nd. I was on part 2. So they're up to part 7 now on the Rockin' Wrestling Rager at Sea. And next year in November of 2026, they're going to be going back to the Bahamas. And he's got some early talent announcements for the show. And people are noting that none of them are AEW talent. So far, it's the Great Muta, Saraya, and Jeff Hardy, along with some others. So people are noting that there's no AEW talent. These are usually very, very AEW-heavy cruises. As a matter of fact, the one I went on, there was a Dynamite taping on there. Had a tag team championship match as well. Tag team titles take place. I think I saw the first ever title change in AEW history. I think it was the first chance. Was it Kenny and Hangman won the titles or something like that night on the boat? Because we'd seen Jericho, they had crowned the champions, but we hadn't seen anybody drop their titles yet. So I think I was one of the first ones to see that. Well, I guess not. No, I think I am. I think I was. Anyway, point is, this is just more evidence that Jericho probably is going to be going back to WWE. And I hope he does. I hope he goes back there, goes in the Hall of Fame. I don't know what he can really do in the ring. I wouldn't, have him in there too long. If I would do something with him maybe similar to what I did with Kurt Angle, where you just had him in the ring a couple of times and then you set him on a course for a retirement match, at WrestleMania or at a different show. Maybe he can wrestle Gunther, and Gunther can retire Goldberg and John Cena and AJ Styles and Chris Jericho and Sheamus, and he can just retire everybody. I think that would be great. But it does feel like the closer and closer we get to the end of the year, the more likely it seems that Chris Jericho will be an entrant in this year's Royal Rumble, probably in Saudi Arabia. And I feel like Jericho is definitely coming back to the WWE. I think there's no avoiding it at this point. I caught just a little bit of Darby Allin on the Ariel Helwani show this week. And a lot of people were up in arms over a comment that he made about the backstage attitude and environment in AEW right now. And he was putting over the happiness in the locker room after cutting out some of the cancer. Now, he was quick to point out that he was not talking about CM Punk, but of course fans don't care. They want to think it's about CM Punk anyway. It really wasn't. He didn't really say who it was about, but you would assume that he was probably talking more about guys like Malachi Black and Miro more than CM Punk, because Punk and Darby were always cool with each other, but I don't know where Darby stood in the whole, brawl out. He's very AEW, he's an AEW flag, carrier there, so he, probably takes their side and whatnot, but in terms of, the mutual respect between him and Punk, I still think it exists, and he was not talking about CM Punk, but I haven't checked out the whole interview yet. He seems like a weird cat. He even dumped some water on his head and, talked about a lot of random stuff, but mostly what I heard was about the AEW locker room stuff. And then he was also a guest on Busted Open. And I guess that he had performed a kickflip when he was climbing Mount Everest. He performed a kickflip on a skateboard at about 21,000 feet. And he was expecting to be recognized in the Guinness Book of World Records, but they didn't count it because apparently you've got to tell them ahead of time when you're going to do something. So if you want to attempt to break a record in the Guinness book, you have to let them know that you're going to attempt it, and then there's all this criteria that apparently he didn't have. But he does have a video of him doing it, and he even said, I don't even care if I'm in there or not. I know what the record is. No motherfucker has ever done a kickflip at 21,000 feet, and he's probably right about that. So I kind of got a kick out of that. But if you haven't seen the interview on Ariel Helwani, go check it out. Some of the stuff about AEW was a little bit interesting. And one thing I haven't talked about yet, it was all the way back last Sunday, but TNA, Bound for Glory. I'd actually forgotten about it. I was apologizing to you guys for not having a classic watch-along on Sunday night, but we probably wouldn't have done one anyway because this Bound for Glory show was kind of a big deal, and I did watch and order and did a watch-along of Slammiversary, and I thought the show was terrible, and I wasn't sure if I was going to order Bound for Glory or not. Now, I wasn't home, so it didn't matter, but apparently it was a much better show than Slammiversary. Number one, Mike Santana won the heavyweight championship. He had that opportunity at Slammiversary. It was in Long Island. It was right like near where his family lived. He had family in the crowd and everything, and everybody thought that was going to be it. But they stretched it out, kind of like they did Joe Hendry, and a lot of fans were really disappointed about that. And the show at Slammiversary was just okay. And they had, 7,200 fans there, something like that, which was a record. They had never drawn that many fans before, and I believe that Bound for Glory set another record. This time was 7,700 fans, which is a pretty decent house for them, but still, this chatter about, when TNA gets a TV deal, which apparently is likely going to happen. It's kind of inevitable at this point. They're going to reach some sort of a TV deal. But this idea that they're automatically going to be the number 2 promotion with a TV deal, there's just no fucking way. They've been around for 23 years and they've drew 7,700 fans. That's their top attendance. Get the fuck out of here. Plus, the money that they're going to receive for their media rights deal is going to be a fraction of what AEW has and even a smaller fraction of what WWE has. So I don't think any of that's going to make too much of a difference, but it will be nice if TNA did get a TV deal. But I don't care if they get a TV deal or not. If they just put their shit on YouTube, I can see it. So I don't need them to be on TV. But apparently that is in the cards now, and it should be happening soon. We'll probably get an announcement for it soon. But at Bound for Glory, in addition to Santana winning the World Championship from Trick Williams in the main event, we also had that one final table match between the Dudley Boys and the Hardy Boys. Now, I saw most of this. I was worried about this match. I even said so leading up to it, that these guys have had such a history of great matches. All those TLC matches they had, which were tremendous. I got to see one of them in person, and it blew my fucking mind at SummerSlam 2000 in Raleigh when they did that TLC match. But also, they had that banger of a tables match at the Royal Rumble back in 2000 as well. So this was a one final tables match, and they did crazy spots. I mean, Devon, he's had some health trouble in recent years, so it was pretty wild to see him actually in the ring competing, and he was definitely a little slow and hobbled in there, but all these guys are old as shit, but he was still able to get all his stuff in. And Jeff Hardy recreated the big WrestleMania 2000 ladder dive spot onto Bubba, which was just insane what these guys did to their bodies. And in the end, it was the Hardy Boys who, had both their championships, or at least the TNA titles, I think, on the line right in this match. It was them getting the win, putting both Dudley Boys through tables, with Bubba Ray, or Bully Ray, going in last. And he kind of, I guess they were trying to do a finish similar to WrestleMania 24 with Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels, where it's kind of like that I'm sorry, I love you, like Flair kind of gets up and he's just calling for his execution. That's kind of what Bubba was doing, but Bubba looked way dumber doing it. He was just sitting there like just a wrinkled pile of Alex Jones, kind of shaking and trembling. And then you think the Hardys are going to just bash his head in with the chair, but instead they just kind of pick him up and slam him through the table very gingerly. And he went through the table. Hardy Boys get the win. And after the match, this was actually kind of cool. The Dudley Boys gave their boots to the Hardys. They took off their wrestling boots and gave them to the Hardys, signifying that will be the absolute last time they will ever be in the ring together as a team, which we kind of thought we already saw that. So the fact that they came back here for one final match, and the match was not a complete embarrassment like I was concerned it might be. I did not want these guys to do to their legacy what Shawn Michaels did to his when he came back in Saudi Arabia and had that terrible match with a bald head. I didn't want to see that happen to these guys, and they're so old, and now they're going to try to have a tables match. And, the match wasn't the most beautiful thing we've ever seen. They've had far better matches 25, a quarter century ago when they were feuding, but this was still a pleasant surprise to see that it completely didn't set us back 50 years. And, I'm glad that all four men survived. I thought it was a nice moment between them. Wish Edge and Christian could have been there too. That would have been even better. But overall, I was happy with how that went with them because they're old. And if they would have gotten injured, if Jeff would have fallen funny off the ladder, or, if the finish wouldn't have gone well, or something would have happened to Devon, or Matt would have gotten another concussion, there were so many what ifs. How could this screw us up? What could go wrong here? And the fact that nothing went wrong was a relief, a big relief, really big relief. So anyway, hats off to all four guys, and that's a wrap on the Dudley Boys' career, I guess. And the Hardys shouldn't be far behind them, as they are currently the TNA and NXT Tag Team Champions. They're kind of in belt collector mode here too. But man, how much longer are the Hardy Boys going to keep going? Apparently their TNA contracts are going to be up soon, which means, much like Jericho, I think they can come back for one final WWE contract, wrestle a couple of matches, and go into the Hall of Fame. And I feel like, Jeff is a two-time Hall of Famer anyway. So, the Hardys could go in first, then Jeff Hardy could go in another year on his own. Or I don't know how that's going to work with Jeff, but he's definitely going to be a two-timer. And Matt probably will too, but I think Jeff for sure. So I would like to see the Hardys come back for one final little WWE contract, go into the Hall of Fame, and have some kind of a retirement match. Some guys never really truly retire, but now we've seen Goldberg. We're about to see John Cena, and we're going to see Tanahashi, and we're going to see AJ Styles. So all four of these men, just within under a year's time, within 6 months' time, or under a year's time, we're going to see them retire, have actual retirement matches. Where some people never really retire. Like Bubba Ray and Devon never really retired, right? They basically did it Pound for Glory. That's what the giving the Hardys the boots meant. But so many wrestlers don't really ever have that final retirement match, and it always leaves the door open for them to come back for one final match. Two of the biggest names in the industry never had a retirement match. Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. But we'll probably never see them in the ring again. Stone Cold might not. He came back for that Kevin Owens thing, but up until that point, it was WrestleMania 19. The Rock, his last match is probably going to be him pinning Cody, which he might actually be fine with. So I think it's nice when you can get actual retirements. And now you've got Goldberg that just happened, John Cena that's about to happen. Then you've got Tanahashi. We just saw what the great Jushin Liger, a couple years ago, about 5 years ago, did his big retirement thing. And now it's going to be Tanahashi. We're going to see the same thing from AJ Styles. And now if you add Chris Jericho and the Hardy Boys to that, I would love to see, there's a true, right before our very eyes, we're seeing a changing of the guard. Right now, a lot of these stars of yesterday are rapid fire retiring here, and we're losing a big one this year in John Cena. And to finally put a nice little cherry on top on the careers of your AJ Styles and your Hardy Boys and your Chris Jerichos, I like retirement matches. I like guys to go out there one final time, and say goodbye and lay their boots in the ring. And so many guys undo that. Undertaker made me cry at WrestleMania 33. I was sitting here watching this, bawling like a baby, watching that hat come off and the jacket, and he folds everything up and he lays it in the ring. And then the production crew, the ring crew, breaks down the entire WrestleMania set with his gear still sitting there out of respect. And then what'd he do? He came back and wrestled. So many guys fuck it up. And so I like to see actual retirements. And so when the Dudleys handed their boots to the Hardys, I'm like, yeah, you guys were already retired in my mind, but the fact that you actually did something to signify it, I love that. And I hope the Hardy Boys get a chance to do the same thing. And so does Chris Jericho, and I hope it's better than what Kurt Angle got at WrestleMania when he had to lose to Baron Corbin. Hope it's just a little bit more of a run. So, yeah, TNA Bound for Glory seemed like to be a much bigger success than Slammiversary was, and good for them. They also did their Hall of Fame. I didn't even see who went into that. Was it the I forgot now. I didn't write down the Hall of Fame news. Was it Angelina Love? And see, I never followed the knockouts, so I didn't know who. Oh, Beautiful People. Is that right? It's Angelina or Angelica. I don't know what their fucking names are. Those two girls, I never knew anything about them. Never barely watched them. Hardly knew who they were. But they went into the Hall of Fame. And Mickey James? Mickey James went in the Hall of Fame too, I think, right? Did Mickey go in? I think it was Mickey and the Beautiful Strangers or whatever, and then I don't know who else. I don't give a shit about the TNA Hall of Fame, to be honest. I don't even know why they have one. They're so like low budget and low tech. It's just a podium up there. It's kind of like how WCW used to do it. Like that one WCW show where they put in like Gordon Soley into the Hall of Fame and shit, and Big John Stud, and it was basically just to get a jump on WWE's Hall of Fame. I think they put in Dusty, little Cody was there, and they basically just brought out the podium in the entranceway of the pay-per-view and did it right there. So that's kind of all the Hall of Fame was for TNA, but I don't really care about TNA's Hall of Fame anyway. Velvet, there you go. Angelina Love and Velvet Sky. I couldn't remember their names. So they went in, but I never really watched them anyway. All right. Well, that just leaves us with our WrestleDream predictions. But before we get to those, let me cruise over here to the chat and knock out a couple super chats that you guys have been sending in to see what you guys are saying. Yeah, do we know the status of Buddy Matthews? Or Buddy Murphy? Buddy Matthews? Yeah, he's another one that I would expect to want to go back to WWE because he's been in AEW. It's not like he's found greater success there than he had in WWE. Plus, his woman's in WWE. So whatever his situation is, I could definitely see him returning there. But I haven't read anything about his contract stuff, so I have no clue. I'm sorry to hear about your father, Melissa. Very sorry to hear that. Ryan Adams, there's the next one. Thank you for the 5. People are reporting that it will be Drew versus Cody now, and apparently a Mad Dragon could be returning tonight. Okay. So it looks like Drew is going to face Cody. They are going to alter that match with Jacob Fatu that is currently advertised on their social media. I'm reading some of the replies here in the Twitter and WWE's Twitter post, and a couple of people are really excited because they think that the announcement of this match happenings means that the wrestling websites were wrong. And so they're people with like hate boners for like Dave and Sean and guys like that. So now they're like, they automatically just assume that it must mean the sheets got worked. No, it's probably not what it means. Jacob's probably still hurt, but they already advertised this match, so they're going to run an angle tonight to get out of it. Doesn't mean the sheets got it wrong or whatever. Jesus Christ. Fans are so salivating at the mouth to say stuff like, oh, you got worked. Jesus, you can always tell like how old these boys are, you know. And it's always boys. You never see a girl wasting her time with this. It's always a boy. It's always a young, friendless boy. My God. But anyway, yeah, curious, I guess, if it's going to be Drew and Cody now. Cool. We've got 5 more from Michael Cuomo. Good to see you, Mike. You know the crowd will explode when Break the Walls Down gets played. Yeah, that Saudi crowd will explode when the song plays. That'll be a big one. Jericho and Saudi. It's probably going to happen. Thank you for 5 from Stone Cold 10X. Hello, Greg and chat. Been a while. Had a baby boy born on 9/22. Future wrestling fan. I'm still here. Blessings to all. Congratulations on your baby boy. And wow. He better be a future wrestling fan. Do you know the date that your son was born on, dude? That's a big day. That's a huge day in history. Specifically for 1997. For 1997, that was the day that Goldberg debuted on Nitro, and it was also the same night that Austin stunned McMahon on Raw. And it was also the same night that before Raw went on the air, Vince McMahon had a meeting with Bret Hart where he told him he wanted out of his deal, setting in motion the screw job. All that happened on the 22nd. The previous year, on that same date, was In Your House Mind Games. So Stone Cold, your baby boy, I think is automatically a wrestling fan. It's just code written into him because of the day he was born on. That's awesome. Congratulations. And thanks for being here, man. Appreciate the 5 from you. We got Max Pokebra. I like him, but Goldberg should have stopped in 2017. I don't know who you're talking about. Oh, you like him. Oh, you mean you like Goldberg. Yeah, I agree. I don't like Goldberg, but I liked him in 2017. Like when he came back in 2016, squashed Brock, the little short run that he had with the title. I wasn't even pissed that he beat Kevin Owens. I didn't like that it happened to Owens, but I was like, okay, I can see this. I can see where they're going now. Brock's going to get his win back at Mania for the championship. And then Goldberg came out the next night and said his piece, and it looked like he was going to retire. And then he came back too. So, and then after that, I've wanted nothing to do with him at all. I never liked him, but then when he came back in 2016 and 17, that all evaporated. I'm like, you know what? I like the way he's carrying himself here. You know, I like this program. I like this feud. It's short and sweet. He's not overstaying his welcome, but then he overstayed his welcome. But I was fine with him as well. But yeah, I think most people agree 2017 would have been it. And that night that he celebrated, that he had the speech on Raw and his son came in the ring and took his shirt off, that would have been a fitting end. A way better end than what happened to him on Saturday Night's Main Event when they botched it and cut him off and his speech was garbage and it was just nonsense. You know, that was much more genuine. You know, it felt real. You know, the words coming out of his mouth was real. You know, even when he told the fans who were wutting him, he's like, hey, I'm out here pouring my heart out. Will you please shut the fuck up? Let me say this. You know, I was kind of like on his side. I'm like, yeah, shut up, fans. Let this man have his moment here. You know, but then everything he did after that was a complete turnoff to me. No interest in Goldberg at all beyond that. All right, well, that leaves us now with our WrestleDream predictions. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It looks like, according to what I have, I could be wrong. I might be missing one. I hope I'm not. I've got 8 matches for the main card, and it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 matches for the Tailgate Brawl. So we're going to start with the Tailgate Brawl. Here's what I've got for that, according to AEW. We've got the Conglomeration versus the Death Riders. It's going to be Orange Cassidy, Tomohiro Ishii, Kyle O'Reilly, and Roderick Strong taking on Daniel Garcia, Wheeler Yuta, Claudio, and Pac. Conglomeration versus Death Riders. You know, I'm expecting a Jon Moxley loss, so I'm going to go Death Riders in that match. Also, the lovely Harley Cameron and the lovely Willow Nightingale will be taking on the lovely Penelope Ford and the lovely Megan Bayne. I'm going to go with the lovely Harley and the lovely Willow. I love them, especially Willow. I love me Willow. She's the best. I'm going to go Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale to get the win there. We also have FTR taking on Jet Speed. FTR. I'm going to go FTR in that match. And advertised is Eddie Kingston and Hook in action. So Eddie Kingston and Hook in action on the tailgate, according to the match lineup that I saw. So I guess I'm going to predict Eddie Kingston and Hook to win the match against whoever they face. It would be crazy if a couple of J-Brones beat them. So I'm going to go Eddie Kingston and Hook to win whatever match they have. And that covers the 4 matches there on the Tailgate Brawl. Main card. Let's go Hurt Syndicate versus the Demand. Okay, Hurt Syndicate versus the Demand. It's going to be a Tornado Trios match. I'm going to go Hurt Syndicate in this one. I think they took a loss in the last one, and I got that wrong in my predictions. So I think this one they will wind up winning. I'm just going to go straight up victory here for Hurt Syndicate over the Demand in the Tornado Trios match. Here's a match that I really like because it's not for a championship. This is something that I've been wanting to see from WWE and AEW that is incredibly rare, but we're starting to see more often. And that is one-on-one women's matches on pay-per-view when there isn't a title on the line. And this one is Jamie Hayter taking on Tekla. Now, I feel like to do this match on pay-per-view would mean that what you're trying to do is establish Tekla as a main star. in the women's division. So I'm going to go Tekla to defeat Jamie Hayter. I love Jamie Hayter. I would love Jamie to get a run back with the world title. But a match like this, to put this on pay-per-view, I feel like the reason you put it on pay-per-view is to put Tekla over. So I'm going to go Tekla to defeat Jamie Hayter. We have the Young Bucks. They're going to be taking on Jurassic Express in a $500,000 match. So if the Young Bucks were to win here, that means they will be out of their financial rut or their financial problems. And I don't want to see that happen yet. I think there's a little bit more gas left in the broke Bucks tank. I want to see more of it. It's fun. I like it. So I'm going to predict Jurassic Express here to beat the Young Bucks and force them to continue to be poor for a little while longer. I think you can stretch this out a little longer here. So plus Jurassic Express just reunited and they just came back. So I don't know if they're going to really take a loss here. So I'm going to go with Jurassic Express to defeat the Young Bucks. Now we could see, an appearance by Kenny Omega in this match or something. That's very possible. But in the end, I think Jurassic Express will get the victory over Matthew and Nicholas. We've got Brodito. They're going to be defending their AEW tag team titles against Takeshita and Okada. Now, I'm loving the rivalry that Okada and Takeshita have been engaging in the Callis family. It's been a lot of fun to watch. It's one of my favorite things they're doing right now, storyline-wise, in AEW. And I would love nothing more than for them to win the AEW tag team championships because I think that would be fun too. However, they beat Brodito to get this match. So I don't want to see Brodito lose again. I don't like those tag team eliminators or whatever they are. Like if you beat the champions, then you get a title match. They used to do that back in the day too in WWE. They do non-title matches, and then if you won, you would just kind of by default get a title match. But it wasn't really written into the stipulation the way they are now with these eliminators and stuff. So I don't want to see Brodito take a second loss to these two. I suppose I want to see some miscommunication or some arguing or dissension between Konosuke and Kazuchika, and that costs them the match. So I'm going to go Brodito to beat Takeshita and Okada and retain the AEW tag team titles. Here's one that's harder than it should be to predict. Kyle Fletcher defending the TNT title against Mark Briscoe. Big win for Briscoe over MJF at the last one. And I even in my predictions, I said I feel like I should predict Briscoe, but I'm not. I'm going to predict MJF, and I regretted it because he wound up winning. Now he's got a TNT title match against Kyle Fletcher, another guy that's also, primed to be the future of this company and could pretty much, I think, be moved up and elevated to main event status at any point. So, could you have Briscoe take the title here from him? Yeah. I want to see it. And I'm in the same situation that I was at the last pay-per-view. I didn't predict any title changes in the last one, so I just kind of forced one, and I turned out to be wrong. I'm kind of doing that here. I feel like for a pay-per-view, you got to do one title change, right? And based on all the other matches, I feel like this is the match that you do it in. So I'm going to predict Mark Briscoe. I'm not confident about it, but I'm going to predict Mark Briscoe to beat Kyle Fletcher and win the TNT title. I've mentioned Briscoe a few times and his connection with the fans. He's got that connection with the fans a lot like Eddie Kingston does. Only Briscoe, I feel, is far more capable in the ring than Eddie is. So what I might want to see for Eddie, there might be time for Briscoe. Briscoe has that same connection with the audience. They love him like they love Eddie. So I would absolutely belt him up here. I think that might be fun. One way you could do it is have MJF come out and show back up and screw Briscoe, continuing their feud. Because I feel like MJF would still want to come back and get a victory over Mark. So you could have MJF screw him here, but I kind of feel like you got to see a title change, and I don't know where else you're going to see it, unless you did the tag team titles, but I feel like this one would be better. So I'm going to predict Mark Briscoe to defeat Kyle Fletcher and win the TNT title. That's my big, I'm not sure match. Everything else I'm relatively sure about. like this one. Chris Statlander defending the AEW Championship against Toni Storm. We're finally getting this match one-on-one. I don't think they would have taken the title off of Toni Storm just to give it right back to her. So I feel like Statlander, this is an opportunity, much like Tekla in the match with Jamie Hayter, to establish Statlander as a main eventer or as a world champion in the women's division. She's already, beat Jade Cargill twice. Now to put down Toni Storm, I think that can only result in good things for Chris Statlander. So I feel like she absolutely has to retain here, and I'm going to predict her to beat Toni Storm, whether it be clean, whether it be shenanigans, I don't know. I've loved the promos and the buildup between these two. I love the promo they did, on Collision or Dynamite a week or so ago, where they were both laying down on their backs with their heads touching. Like, that was wild stuff. I liked all of that. So I feel like this could go beyond WrestleDream. So you could do kind of a funny finish here where it doesn't necessarily have to be clean. Maybe Statlander wins in such a way where Toni is able to establish a rematch over it, But I still think Statlander, for the purposes of this match, she has to retain, and she will beat Toni Storm and hang on to that women's title. Then it's Jon Moxley versus Darby Allin in an I Quit match. I expect this to be bonkers. I expect this to be really entertaining, and I expect this to be unimaginably violent. I feel like it's going to be, we're going to have forks and things like that. We're going to have a lot of blood. Darby, of course, lost the coffin match, which blew my mind. And so him losing an I Quit match now to Moxley, I just see as an impossibility. Darby does not say I quit. We've never seen him say I quit or heard him say I quit. And Moxley has tapped out in a bunch of matches. So Moxley just lost the title at All In with the big tap out, right? Maybe tap out is a little different than actually verbally saying I quit. So I've got Darby all the way winning this match. Unless Moxley pulls some sort of a fast one, unless they try to do what they did at the Royal Rumble back in 1999, where you have an audio recording of Darby saying I quit. But the way they pulled that off at the Royal Rumble was that Foley or Mankind had a promo leading up to that, where he said, I'm going to make you say I quit, Rock, I quit, I quit, I quit. And they used that. So if Darby... There's a great video package on Wednesday on the two of these guys. Did Darby say I quit in any of that? Like, if Darby has been recorded saying the words I quit a lot in the build up to this, they could use that and do a similar finish, but I think that would be really stupid. It would be one thing if Darby won the coffin match, but he didn't. So I feel like it's got to be Darby all the way here, making Moxley say I quit. And what I'm curious about, because it's Darby, I'm curious of what type of creativity he brings to this match. Like, I expect and I want Darby to make Moxley say I quit in a really, really unique way. I don't know what that means or how you can do it, but I want him to try to get Moxley in a predicament where he's got to say I quit. I've referenced the halftime heat before, where Mick Foley or Mankind lowered the forklift on The Rock to win the title. He pinned him with a forklift, like something like that. Use a machine or something, or we've seen, Moxley hung over the top rope and he tapped like that. But I think Darby needs to, do something to where maybe he threatens to flamethrow him. He's got the flamethrower out and Moxley is literally like cornered and he's like, say I quit or you're going to be well done, son. And then Moxley's got no choice. And, then he almost, once upon a time in Hollywood, his ass. That could be fun. But I'm curious to see how, when this match ends and concludes and Darby wins, like I expect him to, what method he uses to make Moxley say I quit. I don't think it's going to be like a wrestling move. I mean, it could be, it could be just a wrestling submission move, after Moxley has been decimated. But I think it'd be more fun if it was like a threat. Like if Darby's got that flamethrower, and say it, might be fun. But Darby all the way to beat Jon Moxley in the I Quit match. And that leaves us with the main event, Hangman Page defending his AEW championship against Samoa Joe. I would love nothing more than for Joe to win back the AEW title here, but I just don't see it. Samoa Joe is another one. Samoa Joe is another gun to throw on the pile with your Goldbergs, with your Cenas, with your Tanahashis, with your AJs, with your Jerichos, with your Hardy Boys. Samoa Joe is another one. I talked about that changing of the guard. Like, there's a lot of guys that are starting to ride off into the sunset now, and Joe is another name that I feel like, within the next year or so is probably going to be wrapping it up. Now, if he had one more final run with the AEW title, great, but I just don't see that happening. I think this is Hangman Page's match to win. I feel like he should win this match, and I feel like he will win this match. So I expect it to be good. I think it's going to be a banger. It's going to tear the house down, and it's going to be bloody, and it's going to be hard-hitting, but in the end, it'll be Hangman Page beating Samoa Joe. And I feel like the two will come back together. Unless you want to make this a program as well, you could, because Hangman doesn't really have a whole line of challengers lined up for him right now. And this match could be really good. You could extend the heat beyond this and do a blow-off at Full Gear or something if you wanted. But if this is just going to be a one and done, I think Hangman needs to eventually buckshot lariat and pin Samoa Joe and retain the AEW title. So that's what I believe should happen. Just to recap, I've got the Death Riders over the Conglomeration, Harley, Cameron, and Willow Nightingale over Penelope Ford and Megan Bayne, FTR over Jet Speed, Eddie Kingston and Hook to win whatever match they wrestle in, Mark Briscoe to defeat Kyle Fletcher to win the TNT title, Tekla to defeat Jamie Hayter, Jurassic Express over the Young Bucks, the Hurt Syndicate over the Demand in the Tornado Trios tag, Jon Moxley to lose and say I quit to Darby Allin, Brodito to successfully retain their tag team titles over Takeshita and Okada, Statlander to defeat Tony Storm to retain the AEW Women's Championship, and Hangman Page to defeat Samoa Joe to retain the AEW Championship. And there you go. So that is pretty much the end of my notes there, which is perfect timing because I got to get out of here and head to work now. Let me cruise to the chat, see if you guys are saying anything else here in the chat. Thank you, Stone Cold 10X. Greg didn't know that wrestling information about my baby boy. B-Day, thanks. Yeah, September 22nd. I've done a couple of This Day in Histories on that date, and I've posted on social media. It's another one of those weird dates that sticks out in my mind. October 5th does too. Brian Pillman's death. Owens does on May 23rd. Hogan's title win on January 24th always sticks out. Some of the WrestleMania dates, like WrestleMania 6 on April 1st, sticks out. So I've got a lot of like random dates in my head that I just somehow, for some reason, remember. And I don't know why. And that happens to be one of them. But anyway, right on. That's going to be the end of my notes. And now I got to get out of here and head off to a Friday night at work. So thank you so much for being here this afternoon. Don't forget, we will be up here on Sunday doing a No Mercy 2001 watch along. And then we'll also be here on Monday night after Raw to review the show, talk about whatever's going on with Seth Rollins and his injury and the future of the World Heavyweight Championship. And I'll give you my thoughts on tomorrow's WrestleDream. So if you are watching WrestleDream tomorrow, I hope you enjoyed the show. As for tonight goes, feel free to send me updates on SmackDown. Looks like Drew McIntyre and Jacob Fatu are still set to happen, even though I don't think it's going to happen. So let me know what happens there. And tomorrow night, if you are watching WrestleDream and you feel like shooting some results my way, I would welcome them. So anyway, you guys have a great rest of your Friday night. If you could hit that thumbs up button on the way out the door, I would appreciate it. And I will be catching you guys on Sunday for the Classic Watch Along. Until then, talk to you soon. Peace.